Good morning. Today is Friday, June 2nd, 2023. I want to share and then unpack a statement that was made by the Rav, Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik. He had a criticism of his students at Yeshiva University, and it applies more widely to our generation. He said it many times, in many different ways, but one of the expressions of this was his observation that, Baruch Hashem, thank God, today we have many Shabbos Jews, many Jews who observe Shabbat. But he bemoaned that we have very few Erev Shabbat Jews, Jews who properly prepare for Shabbos before it arrives. At the end of the parsha of Kisisa, the Torah tells us, Vayihi beredes Moshe mehar Sinai, and when Moshe came down for the second time from Mount Sinai, Ushnei luchos ha'edus biyad Moshe, beridito minahar, and Moshe came carrying the two tablets of stone on which were engraved the Eser Sedibros, the Ten Commandments. Moshe lo yoda, and Moshe did not realize, ki karan ar panav beridito ito, that as he came down from the mountain, his face was radiating light. It was glowing light. Then the Torah says, Vayitzavem Es kol asher diber Hashem ito b'har Sinai, and Moshe taught all of the words that God had spoken to him while he was on Mount Sinai. And the Rav pointed out, and I've shared this with some of you before, that there are two components to the Torah that Moshe taught. The second component was the formal teaching of the words, the content that God spoke to Moshe to tell the Jewish people what to do and what not to do. But the first component was the radiating light, the experiential radiation of God's connection with the Jewish people. The sense Moshe taught them by his face, the sense of the enthusiasm, the emotional content of what it means to do a mitzvah, to follow God's words. Not just to do something, but what to feel as we do it. And the Rav would say, he would say about himself, he knows he's a very good teacher. And he has students who are very smart. And he can teach them at the most advanced level the intricate details of Jewish law, what is permitted and what is prohibited. He knows that he could do that. And he knows that his students would understand him. But the spiritual sensitivity, the inner content of how observing God's laws should make us feel, that's much harder to teach. And he bemoaned that he felt that he was inadequate to that task. And that's what he meant when he said an Erev Shabbat Jew, a Jew who was able not only to know what to do and not to do on Shabbos, but what to feel, how to radiate the holiness of Shabbos. Now, this applies in every area of religious life, but it's particularly relevant to observing Shabbos. And the Rav taught us it starts on Erev Shabbos, in the way in which we prepare before Shabbos begins. There's a mitzvah that many of us are familiar with called Kavod Shabbos. We are to honor Shabbos. And we know many ways that we do this. We honor Shabbos in the way that we dress. we honor Shabbos in the way we behave on Shabbos. And there are a number of specific things that we do and do not do in order to honor Shabbos, to show honor, kavod, to Shabbos. But the Rambam makes a surprising comment. The Rambam says, Ezehu kavod, how do we honor Shabbos? The Rambam says, a person on Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos starts, should bathe and dress for Shabbos in order to honor Shabbos when it arrives. V'yoshev b'koved rosh, and a person should sit for a while before Shabbos starts on Friday afternoon. A person should sit for a while in serious contemplation, miyachel lahakbalas pnei haShabbos, with yearning, waiting to receive the face of Shabbos. K'mo shehu yotzei likras hamelech, as if he is going to greet a king, a sovereign, or a queen, royalty. It starts on Erev Shabbos. How we prepare for Shabbos, how we await Shabbos, how we anticipate the holiness of Shabbos coming. Our sages teach us that every family member should be personally involved in preparing for Shabbos. The Talmud tells us that each one of the sages would take time from their studies, their teaching, and they would make something, they would cook something, they would prepare something, not just to leave it to someone else in the family to do, but to be involved in the preparations with one's own hands. Our sages tell us that we should not eat a large meal on Friday afternoon, so that we should be looking forward to the enjoyment of the Shabbos meals. And perhaps the most important preparation of all, that every one of us needs to be reminded about and to try to practice, especially on Friday afternoon, is written by the Mishnah Brura, the classic work of Jewish law. Now, the way that this passage is written, it is addressed to men, but it applies to men, women, and children. The Mishnah Brura writes as follows: V'tzarech lihizaher, a person should be exceedingly careful. Shekodem shiagia halayla, that on Friday afternoon before Shabbos arrives, chayev laharos chiba yesera va'ahava im ishto, a person is obligated to demonstrate extra warmth and romance and love to their spouse. Ve'ein tzarach lomar, and it goes without saying, shlo yargil shum ktata be'erev Shabbos, that a person should not engage in any words of divisiveness or arguing before Shabbos. That's the way to prepare, so that when Shabbos arrives, there's a feeling of holiness, a feeling of intimacy, a feeling of closeness with each other and with God. It is crucial to observe Shabbos properly, and we have to learn how. We have to learn which actions are permissible, which actions are prohibited, under which circumstances. But this is the easier part of observing Shabbos. The more difficult part and the more important part is, how do we create a craving for the holiness of Shabbos? How do we create a yearning for the holiness of Shabbos? Because that's the role that Shabbos is supposed to have in our lives. That's our task, to live with this and to raise our children and our grandchildren to have this sensitivity. And it begins with Erev Shabbos. to be an Erev Shabbat Jew, to on Friday anticipate, work towards, look forward to, with yearning, with anticipation, the arrival of the holiness of Shabbos. My friends, I wish it for you and I wish it for me. And I wish you all a wonderful day and a beautiful and sanctified Shabbos. I look forward to seeing you soon in person.